18. The plan was simple, the way I liked them. Now it was time to execute. If Amelia did her work with her routine efficiency, the rest of us would be sitting in the snow for a bit while she sprang the prints. Sheena crept behind Tess and Liatra as they hunched, then scurried down the hill toward the trap-laden plains. Their blinking indicators on my map reflected how they slipped in between the threats, and soon they were far enough away that I lost track of them in their whitened garbs if I didn't focus. Amelia popped her camouflage ability, then crept to the north before turning west. She reached the garrison wall on that side moments later. When the magicians reached their post, they summoned their minions. I brought up Liatra's character pane so I could see her give the thumbs up while Destiny used the scope to monitor the situation. When the signal came, I sent out a chat.
Raid chat. G3M1N1.
Great, Amelia, start climbing. When Amelia reaches the top, I'll signal Tess and Liatra. Keep those minions just close enough that the guards easily analyze them before they pass by. Have them fly along the southern wall, then around to the west.
Liatra.
Acknowledged.
The elven assassin threw up the grappling hook. I flinched when it hit the top, then again when she dragged it to snag a hold on the parapets. The wild wind would have shrouded the sound, but my body didn't always make sense, just like in the real world. The way she clambered up, she could have been a spider. In mere moments, she was up and over, lying flat on the wall's top. She was still coated blue and cast in semi-transparency to reflect her camo, which meant she hadn't been detected, so there was that.
G3M1N1.
Now, the glowing, hovering, fairy-like creatures zipped into the distance, then cut a wide arc to shoot west, parallel to the southern wall. One of the guards shot a finger in their direction. He'd picked them up fast. As ordered, Shireen dipped below the wall line and flew toward the corner of the western-facing wall, while Tess's minions pretended to pursue. At the same time, Liatra sent my great cat to the north and into the wide-open plain. I wasn't sure how it would handle hidden traps, but it crept along, dodging around them without issue. I didn't know how or why, and I didn't give a shit. Just so the job got done. When I shifted my focus back to the garrison, the guards were running along the western wall toward its intersection with the northern. Perfect. I sent my cat a feeling across the emotional airwaves. I owed the realization it was the best way to communicate, at a distance or in stealth situations, to the bond I'd shared with Priya before Lucera took the wheel. The beast stopped just beyond the furthest traps, turned, then faced the wall. The fairies shot toward it. Amelia shuffled to where the men had stood less than 2 minutes earlier, then anchored her grappling hook to begin her descent to the garrison's grounds. When she disappeared behind the buildings, I reached out with one hand and activated my summon mount ability. My giant black steed with its glossy coat would stand out against the white blanket background like a sore thumb. That was the plan. I shot it a quick look. Thunder whipped its head around, saw me, then clopped closer. He gave a low rumble, then lowered his head. Since I hadn't summoned him before we were cast into the labyrinth, he didn't suffer from having missed me for the last 5 years like my other pets. I suddenly wanted to see Click, but I couldn't summon more than one animal companion and one mount at a time in the wilds. I scratched along the length of his neck. Need you to ride that way until you're parallel with Sheena. Then join her on the plain. No glowing nostrils. Keep cool until the time comes for desperate measures. Now go. The horse lit off to the north far enough to circumvent the traps entirely, then turned left. Its hooves kicked up plumes of snow to be carried by the high wind. Atop the wall, one of the guards threw out a hand, then all three sped to the edge closest to my casters. Moments later, they sped out of the northern gate to get a closer look at the gathered fairies and animals in the distance. After all, what could it hurt? The shit was crazy, right? Glowing beings flying around in unfamiliar lands? A great white cat consorting with them? A giant horse? Moments later, Amelia appeared at the closest corner of the building in which Giles was being held. So I assumed there'd been no other entrances. A single guard stood out front. If he followed the protocol we'd scouted over the last hour leading up to dusk, he'd slip inside, then reappear moments later. As the horizon split the sun and a gorgeous orange glow painted the snowy plains, I sent a message for our casters to return to the hill. Their summons would disappear when they walked out of range, but Thunder and Sheena would take it from there, hopefully after Amelia emerged with one of my oldest Enoran friends in tow. My heart ratcheted up a notch when the guard turned and Amelia Horn scanned the area out front before dipping away into the shadows. 19. Amelia.
When the guard turned to pace back into the building, I spotted the ornate handle of a dagger shoved into the outside of his left boot. I couldn't have asked for better tidings. When I slipped into the shadows, fiery sconces cast only the dimmest light on the long hallway's stony walls. Scanning ahead, I estimated that it would take him 10 paces to reach the first intersection. I hustled forth, then dipped low. When his right boot touched down, I snagged the dagger from his left. The sound of metal on metal brought his gaze down to his toes, but I was on his heels. Moments later, the blade was half submerged in the side of his neck. Although I'd never known anyone to call out with such a wound, I leaped onto his back and threw my hand over his bloody mouth, then flexed my legs around this midsection to weigh him down until he folded. Just before his body slumped to the ground, I rolled away. For good measure, I kicked him in the jaw to ensure his final breaths came from an unconscious body. I stowed the dagger in my magic bag without worry about the blood dressing the silvery blade. Looked like a decent one. But my camouflage cooldown would cost me 20 seconds at my current level, and the time I might have wasted analysing the blade would be better spent in the shadows. Water from my canteen extinguished the closest sconces, and I lay low with the chill of the stone wall pressing into my neck where my leather didn't reach, ears peeled for approaching footsteps. Silence. The deadly kind prefacing the coming of a dark presence. But I knew it was all in my head. It always amazed me how years of training did so little to assuage my paranoia. But maybe it was baked into the process. After all, a healthy bit of apprehension made for a higher degree of alertness. A rattle perked my ears up, and my heart jumped in my chest. When I whipped my head around, the dying guard gave a final, violent shiver, then died.
Plus 477 XP.
The pool of blood surrounding him seemed wide and thick, despite knowing the size of the gaping wound I'd inflicted. Another thing I never got used to. I scanned the corpse.
Unknown Blade Master, level 40.
40. Good. Here's hoping they're all lower than me. Footfalls. A check of my timers revealed 10 seconds remained before I could go stealthy. Although the sconce above me wasn't lit, I couldn't risk someone calling out for help before I could silence them. Even if I got a bolt off from my crossbow, there was no promise I'd be accurate enough to stifle a voice. Besides, all it took was a quick clan chat by an enemy, and the stealth option of the quest would be lost. Too much XP to screw around at a time when we all needed it. Although Gemini would never mention such a failure, I couldn't stand the thought of disappointing him. So I hurried to the corner to lie in wait for new arrivals. The figure came around the corner seconds later. The blade of my dagger, the one whose weight I knew like that of mine own hand, shot up through the soft flesh behind his chin, then into his brain. I twisted it out of habit, then wrenched it free. Inside my head, I called it the Fowler Special. Something squeaked inside the guard's noggin, but I didn't watch his face because I was too busy throwing my arms around him to ensure he landed softly.
Plus 499 XP. Private chat. Amelia.
Hello, my prince.
Giles.
Amelia, the Queen told me to anticipate your arrival. Is the Chenois with you?
He is. I'm in the building. Where are you?
Turn right, then follow the hallway to a stairwell at the end. I'm in a cell downstairs. My guard just left to patrol.
Yes, I believe we've met. Be there in seconds. The keys I sought were on a ring looped around the corpse's belt. I had to unbuckle the gaudy thing, then slip them free, so I stuck the gear in my bag and secured the implements of my prince's liberation. After rounding the corner, I ran my fingertips along the wall to my right for my bearings as I sprinted toward the stairs. Mounting them, my feet made an uncharacteristic pitter-patter, reminding me to activate my camo ability. When I reached the bottom, I was greeted by a long hallway cast in brighter light by the high blue flames of thinner sconces that could only be magic in nature. I stopped, dipped to one knee, then scanned for traps.
No traps detected.
A whisper came from up the hallway.
Amelia?
An arm shot out halfway down the corridor, then flagged up and down, as if I wouldn't find him. That he'd heard me despite my soft steps brought a smile to my lips, only because I knew a human would never hear what an elf could.
Giles stood in the middle of a 6x6 cell, his hair knotted into a braid over one shoulder to reach halfway to his waist. Although there were other cubicle spaces like it, they hadn't gotten around to adding bars to those. After all, how many people were around for them to throw in cells this far north? The key clattered in the hole to his cell door as I broke stealth. Wrong key. I cast a glance down the hallway to the stairs, suddenly cognizant of the rapid beating in my chest.
Breathe, Amelia Horn.
Giles smiled. I couldn't say I'd have done the same considering how long he'd been in there. The image I'd conjured in my mind of an emaciated elf with dishevelled hair and a grey pallor hadn't even come close to the mark. Probably should have known better. It was, after all, Prince Giles Reynard. Entering a semi-meditative state, I calmed my heart's complaining. The third key proved a winner. The door squeaked loudly, but my ticker maintained its easier rhythm. You've been stuck in this tiny cell for 5 years? His white-topped head twisted side to side.
Only 3. I look forward to hearing where you've been.
And here you shall, my prince. I swept a hand toward the door. For now, Gemini and I have a quest to complete.